So, thank you. All right, so we're going to call to order today's Board of Selectmen special meeting budget workshop for Monday, February 5th, 2024, and we're going to get started promptly at 7:01. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Public speak. So Jed, I know you're here probably for your segment of the budget, but you're the only person here from the public. So would you like to say anything for us?
Well, I didn't know if this was the right place to chime in on that or not, but I did hear that there was a tentative $50,000 to be discussed about adding to the budget. And from the Planning and Zoning Commission's perspective, we used to put $50,000 a year in the budget. And when the budget got kind of tough there for a while, we took that out. And $50,000 today isn't what it was a couple years ago. So, the commission thought that $50,000 was a good number. The state's goal is to have 21% of our area open space. As of the drafting of our last plan of conservation and development, we were about 230 some acres short. The BOCD talked about how that should be an easy goal to meet over the next 10 years. And we haven't made an awful lot of progress of doing that. The last survey that the town took in 2018 for the long-term planning committee, the public indicated there were three things they were willing to pay more taxes for. One of those three being open space funding. And then lastly, the last time we tried to buy some open space, I think the state was ponying up 80% of that with the town only having to come up with 20%. So I do think it's a good bargain time while the state has the money for us to go out and pursue open space if the suitable lot becomes available. And that was my pitch on open space funding.
Okay.
Thanks, Jed.
Thank you very much. So I know, Eric, you've sent us a couple documents.
Certainly.
I would probably sit there and say, let's go with your spreadsheet if you can post it up there, the 10 most increased items, unless the board has any issues related to looking at that and focusing on those items right now. Anybody? No? Okay.
Okay, with a little luck, you're looking at it right now.
Yes. All right, so
I can blow that up, I think, just a little bit. Okay.
yeah. So Eric, if I have the numbers right, and I'm trying to scroll down on your other spreadsheet. We have, no, it doesn't really say what it is because you don't do that.
What's your question? Maybe I can answer it.
Well, I'm trying to look at the spreadsheet that you provided, your working copy, and I'm trying to determine what the total increase is related to the budget. The total dollar increase.
You
600.
mean in the town's portion of the budget?
No, the total budget.
If you go to the mill rate calculation, it's ballpark $500,000 more. The total expenditure goes from 12,469,000 to 12,997,000 as proposed.
All right, so you say 12 million,
12,997,000.
yeah, 1 second. But you have offsets that I'm trying to calculate, so. 12,997,000, so the difference between this year's and last year's is,
If I look at it carefully, ballpark. Oh,
528,000.
yeah, I was gonna say 535,000, 540,000, but your number's probably righter. More correct, I should say.
And then
Later.
you're basically estimating revenue to be up $175,000. And I know that when we estimate revenues, that's problematic, but. And then you're
Well,
talking,
but remember, of that, $150,000 is what we know we're taking in currently from the steep or from the stiff account. So the majority of that revenue increase comes from what we know we're currently getting for interest. Will that stay the same? Depends how the economy goes. I mean,
yeah, that's fine. And then you're sitting there saying abatements are gonna stay the same. Just so that-
sure,
Right? Is that correct? That's on your mill rate tab.
right, correct. Well, I mean, think about the biggest single abatement, that we have is Hop River Homes.
Yeah.
And that we've set. So that we know. And then the firefighter abatements and exemptions. So between those two, it doesn't change a whole lot from year to year. Is that number exact? Probably not, but it's a pretty good ballpark. It's not going to be off a lot.
Shouldn't the community center be included in this list?
Think it is.
It is. It's the number 2 item on there.
Oh, budget overall, right?
Yep. Now, remember that total number is actually bigger because that community center budget does not include the health and dental insurance for whoever's going to run it. So that portion of that gets rolled into the health and dental, which is item number 4 on the list.
So basically these numbers then do add up. So just so we're all playing on the same thing, we have a $528,000 total increase in expenditures. 113,000 as a preliminary number from Andover Elementary, $198,000 decrease from the town and from the RAM budget, and a $613,000 increase from the town budget. And then these items here represent the significant portion of what we're talking about increasing in total dollars.
Correct.
So if we attack these and look at these and say, should we include them or should we not include them? We'll be most of the way there to our total budget.
Correct.
Okay. All right. let's start with number one, the AES Capital Fund. So, I'm assuming everybody looked at the information that the school sent Eric related to their projects that they potentially have sitting there.
Yeah.
The primary one being the plumbing one for the upper school that could potentially run upwards of $200,000.
Right.
So while it's a significant amount of money, it's probably something that we as a community are going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily argue with that one. Number two, the community center,
Right.
that was our
My
priority.
one argument with AES Capital Fund is it probably needs to be more than that because we have not had a capital fund. And just the plumbing is gonna be 200,000, and do we want to wait 2 years or more before they can do that?
Well, the assumption, Ann, would be that we would take the money that is potentially designated for the parking lot and we would redirect that money that they have to the plumbing because it's more of a priority. And
Right.
we're going to be in a situation where then we can sit there and say, hey, let's put the AAS Capital Fund at $500,000 and we're going to get tremendous pushback from the community as to what we're doing. So what does everybody on this board want to come up with? You know, I would love to be spending a lot more money, but I don't think it's practical or prudent. And, you know, are we asking the residents to come up with, I mean, this is a significant increase as it is. And I
Yeah.
think we need to look at all of the items and say, what's the most important? And do we want to press the residents for the money? Because that's going to be the question.
Yeah, well, I know that it was just a year or two ago, they finished paying off the last edition. I don't remember what the amount annually was for that, but now we have to be maintaining the school that we have there. And this is a major expense. So,
Well, and remember, not very long ago, like what, 5 years ago, the town spent about $500,000 on the roof for the school. So it's not that the town has not been putting maintenance money into the school. I mean, to me, the biggest problem in this is that the school should be presenting the town with a 10-year capital plan, you know, and laying out what their true capital needs are so that we can properly fund them. I mean, right now, you know, we know of two things that they've made us aware of, but they also want both parking lots done. You know, there's some definite issues with some of the walkways out back. One of the entrances is where there's a concrete patio above a lower door, is definitely leaking inside the building. You know, so there are definitely some structural problems with that school that should be taken care of. But at this point, the only thing we can really do is respond to the things we've identified at this point. And that's what I'm trying to do, is split the difference and saying, okay, you know, the town can contribute to this fund annually. And then the school can put in whatever excess funds it has on the end of the budget year. Especially if there's more than what's going in the non-lapsing account. And we can build that fund up enough to deal with capital issues as they come up. Because right now, if we had a, you know, if we had an emergency, you know, we're talking about taking that out of the unexpended fund balance to deal with it. So there should be some kind of capital.
And to be clear, Eric is 100% right, Ann. I've been on the board for over 8 years and I've never seen a capital analysis, anything done
right,
by
it is
Board of
time to
Education to
start
us.
this, though. That's a good start.
So,
But-
and I'm not disagreeing with you that that amount of money might be low, but we're pumping, you know, we've never asked for this amount of money from the community. It's
It's
a
not for a
big,
capital fund.
it's a big, no,
Like
no,
Eric
we've
says, they did the
never,
roof 5 years ago. So that was a big chunk.
well, of course it was, but we had planned for that. We knew that was coming and we planned for it. Um,
Mhm.
and I'll be really honest. I was reading Eric's information today and uh the school just got new lights for the gym. Did we know that, Eric? I didn't know that. I found out about that on Saturday.
No, I did not.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that is not communicated back to the town. So while it's great that they got new LED lights for the gym, and I, as a coach, am extremely happy they got new lights for the gym, it would probably be more appropriate that we find out about that and the town administrator is notified that these things are going on. So they put in their list that they need lights, but it's would be nice. It would be nice to know. I hope they got a grant for it. I don't know where they got the money for it.
Yeah.
It's a communication issue. Um, and I agree we got to put some money away because we have to take care of the single largest asset that the town owns. How big that number is a different story. So uh, item 2, so we're going to go back and we're just going to talk about each one of them and then we'll go back and we'll sit there and see what we're looking at. But and I'm going to just sit there and come to you. There's nothing here that I'm adding to. There's only things that I'm saying we should take away, to be really blunt. So uh, uh, you just want to go through this. You got to go to the community center. This is what we talked about. We have a new building. We have an aging population. We need to take care of those needs, and we need to be we need to make this position a revenue generator as much as possible to pay for themselves. So hopefully we can increase our revenue side on the opposite side, but I look at that $82,000 as money that we need to spend to make that building as available to the community as it possibly can be. And it will help us in all different areas, recreation, seniors. So I look at that as needed. The culvert fund, this is a problem. This is, you talk about the school being a problem. This one's also a problem. I mean, Eric has Lake Road as potentially costing the town. How much, Eric?
Up to 950,000.
Yeah, we need to be pressing the state for every grant availability that we can get on those. We should probably get a meeting with MD to sit there and down and really discuss and lay out all of the culverts and all of the road issues that we have to sit there and see what's potentially available to help us because, they gave the trip grant money, but they didn't give the trip grant money to assist. So now what did you apply? Just so I'm going to step off. What did you apply for the trip grant money for?
So I applied for the trip grant money to reconstruct a little over a mile of town road, which included Hendy and a section of Long Hill and Skinner Hill Road.
So we had been, if I remember correctly, they had ranked the grants.
So the grants first went to the Capital Regional Council of Governments.
Mhm.
In each government, each CROG or COG ranked the grant applications to them, and they were only allowed to pass on a certain number. So I think our COG got 8 grant applications, of which 4 they passed on. We were one of the ones that got passed on. But the problem came in is that the scoring criteria that the COG used was kind of completely different than the scoring criteria the state used. And the state did not fund any reconstruction projects. Or actually, I think they funded 1 out of the 10. 9 out of the 10 they funded were kind of multi-use, either sidewalk projects or standalone pathway projects, or they funded, $1 million something to resurface part of the airline trail. in one of the towns. So,
That's
um,
good transportation dollars.
yeah, I mean, there's no question right now the state has kind of got religion about pushing uh um all aspects of transportation. And they've made kind of a 180 in the last year about including um things other than just trying to make cars go as fast as they can from point A to point B.
Okay. So with that being said, that and so that was Hendy and what was that?
Long
Was
Hill.
that Hendy and Long
Yeah,
Hill?
Hendy Hill Skinner.
So we were talking about in our last budget meeting doing the drainage on that road. So now we don't have any money to do the road now.
Well, so we need to do the drainage one way or the other. So the only difference is now we're gonna do the drainage. We can do it, I don't wanna say a little more casually, but it doesn't have to. If we had gotten the trip grants, pretty much we would have committed Public Works for the entire summer to do the drainage first. Now we can do as much of the drainage as we can fit in with other projects that we have. So, and when we're done, we will just repave the areas where we've disturbed the drainage, and that section of Long Hill and Skinner will get chip sealed. So it won't be ideal, but we'll end up with a workable surface.
So how much money do we currently have in the culvert fund?
So I was trying to figure that out. It's somewhere around $350,000 currently.
Okay. So you're at the budget is currently proposed is $75,000.
That's an increase of 75,000.
Increase of 70, so it's up to $175,000.
Correct.
Looking at the wrong one. I'm sorry. Can you slide up on that one? Because can you put in your spreadsheet, lock the top column, lock the top row. So you go to file. Nope, get it out there. Go. Nope.
I don't know
Nope.
how to do that.
I know. I'm going to tell you how to do it. See
Okay.
where it says AES Capital Fund? Click on AES
Yep.
Capital Fund. Click on it. And then go up to view. Up top, over to the right, view. Go to freeze panes. It's over to the right. It says freeze panes. I can't. It's above column K.
3/4 of the way over.
Above column K. Above column K. Above column K. Up.
Got it.
And click on it.
Yep.
All right. Click on it. All right. Then hit the top one, freeze panes. Hit the top
I
one.
did
Up
that.
above that. Up above it. Up above it. Oh my. It says freeze panes. It has a star in the upper corner. Click
So
on
that's,
it.
you want to do freeze panes, not freeze top row.
That's
Okay.
right. Freeze panes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. So now as you slide down, we'll be able to see the items at the top. So I can sit there and see that this is the delta increase and this is what we got. So
Got it.
okay. So so the increase in the AS capital fund is $100,000 because we hadn't done anything last year. The
Correct.
increase to the community center is 82,967 plus the benefits. So it's another $100,000 for the community center if everybody's aware of it.
Correct.
The culvert fund, we had funded $100,000 last year. Now we're asking for $175,000, and that's a $75,000 increase. They're increasing the 16% increase in the health insurance and the dental for the self-insured. It's not a captive, but what is that group called? It's not a captive. What do they call themselves? It's a consortium. the consortium for the health insurance. So that's an extra $70,000.
I think
Open-
it's actually less than that. I think there's something wrong with my math, and I've sent it to Cheryl to review and say, why does this, because it just doesn't add up to last year's numbers, but I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong in that, in my math.
Has the consortium just sent you a number, or they haven't sent you a number?
No, they don't send you a number. They just tell you what the, the percentage increase for the single, for the double, and for the, family plan is, and you figure it out from there.
Okay.
Eventually, they will send you the number, but we don't have that yet.
So open space fund is what Jed just talked to us about. So that's a potential $50,000 increase. To be really honest, Jed, that's probably the one, and I think Jed's still on, and Ann and Scott, that's the one that's the,
I'm still here.
yeah, that's, I mean, to sit there and say it, Jed, it's one of those ones on the budget that's, we need to do it, but it's probably one of the ones that I would strike. I would push open space out for this budget cycle, but that's just me. So we'll come back on that one. The multi-use building, Eric, when are we getting started that?
So,
This is the transportation building, or
Well,
what you're doing. This is really a building fund.
that is exactly what that is. So I was thinking two things. One, at a town meeting, we've already agreed to cover part of the cost of a new transportation facility. We've agreed to spend up to $150,000 out of that fund to fit out the community center, which might end up being low. And that's probably where we're gonna have to take the town's contribution to the athletic field out of.
Mhm.
So
Right.
you take all those things together, we're gonna basically chew up what's in that fund. So if other things come up, that's another one of those where we ought to be thinking systematically about putting money into it every year, so we have that pool to work with when things come up. Especially since we get a lot of grant applications that are requiring town contributions. And I don't necessarily have a place in the budget where I could just pull from that. Because by the time they announce the grant, usually you only have a couple of months to submit the grant, if you're lucky. So that's kind of where I was thinking with that. But if you had to ask me, that would be the first one I would cut. But it's not that I don't agree that that's an important spot.
Okay, can we just change that title then to building fund? I mean, not right now, but we should just change that to a global building fund, so we know it's, or infrastructure improvement fund kind of thing, and we can spread it across a lot of different items. But yeah, I sit there and I look at that one, I go, that's not that's I would keep that one there, because you have no money for, if you walked through all of your facilities, you have no real money in case something happens or if you need to do anything.
Well,
I would bank everything. I have no
yeah,
problem.
you still have the money that we're putting into the building maintenance fund.
Mhm.
That we're keeping, that you can use some of that to deal with emergencies.
Mhm.
This was originally envisioned, I mean, that fund was originally designed strictly for the community center. But then we were able to build it out of the ARPA funds primarily. So then, it got kind of thought of in a couple of different buckets. So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
There's
and then-
like $30,000 left Why don't you take those other funds out?
Okay.
Correct.
So then you move down to 7A and 7B, which is an increase in the treasurer's department of $21,000. So those are strictly for wages for the treasurer's office.
So Cheryl has basically said, you know, you're not allocating enough hours to do the treasurer role in this job in any way, shape, or form. And, you know, because she is essentially the department head. So that is what she came back to me as what, you know, she thought was appropriate. You know, and the assistant treasurer wants even more than what's allocated for her. I'll be perfectly blunt. She's looking for an even greater pay raise than that. You know, and given the market, she's probably aware that she can make that money elsewhere. You know, so that's the next chunk.
Okay.
So I don't know whether you want to discuss all that globally here or globally when we come to salaries overall. But we have to start having that discussion about employee compensation in some form or another.
Okay, let's do it then. And
Yeah, I would wait.
yeah, I don't want to do it right now. And I mean, even when we do those wages, I would like to do that in executive session just to be free to talk about individuals. So, and then the next item 8 is just another salary increase because you're sitting there looking at senior transportation and you're having to pay more to pay for your drivers.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that's we've blown that line item the last 3 years in a row and had to plus it up. So I went back and pulled all the driver data for the last year and said, okay, how many hours do we actually pay drivers in a year to drive? And the answer is right now is we're going to come up with just over 2,000 hours of driver labor hours in a year. And we've been way under budgeting for it. You know, in part, there's a reticence on the volunteers who kind of run that to increase their budgets. And I kind of got sick of that because I got a cover for that every year from other budgets and said, okay, that's what it actually costs, you know, for to pay for that, for what we're paying all the drivers.
Okay. And then the line item 9, the project manager, $15,000. That's just a wash from the admin line, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it's
Correct.
an increase, but it's a wash.
Yeah, that makes kind of two assumptions. One, you know, we sign a standalone agreement with Kate to still function minimally as the admin. And then we take all the additional money that we would have been paying the admin and go for somebody that's a project manager, that can work very part-time as a project manager,
Okay.
presuming we can find somebody, you know, which is always an assumption.
All right. And then the last item 10, the fire engine fund.
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of looking at the fire engine fund, is well solvent right now. But when we start looking at what our interest payments are going to be on the new fire truck, they're going to be basically around $125,000 a year. You know, and they definitely have quite a bit of other capital needs. So I think we're going to have to increase that somewhat. Probably even more than this, but you know, this at least is something. So we're slightly positive.
So the $137,000 is the current payment that we have on the vehicle that was purchased?
No. So we haven't made any payments on the vehicle because they haven't built the thing yet. We've signed a contract for them to build it. And we know basically what our payments are going to be, but the mortgage lender won't even give us a final number, until we're basically 1 year out from getting the vehicle. If that makes sense. Because they're really long lead times on these vehicles. So we have
Understood.
the cost of the vehicle locked in.
What's the annual payment? I know it was in the contract.
Yeah, I think it was around like 122,000 a year, something like that.
So that's why we had $125,000 in the budget annually so that we could make the payment.
Yes, we had been funding, typically, so I had been recommending all along that we fund their budget at around $125,000 a year. But between the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, that budget has consistently been cut a lot every year. So we've never funded, to their capital plan, for quite a while. I mean, we funded it, but we basically just kind of slowed down on their capital plan, and funded what we could.
And what's in the fund to begin with?
Right now, I think there's around $250,000 in the fund, of which about 75 will be taken up by the HVAC updates, which leaves them about 175. So they have a little more than one payment for the engine, but that doesn't account for the other capital needs. And they definitely have a lot of the smaller vehicles that are needing refurbishing / replacement coming up.
Okay. I'm kind of not a big fan of that one because I understand what you're saying. There's additional capital needs, but if you've already got in excess of one payment there, we're just going to be putting extra money into that fund. Well, all right, let's have some discussion on any of the items. So let's go around from a Board of Selectmen perspective and who has problems with any of the line items? Let's start from that perspective.
I have a question. I was so the elevator needs for AES. I thought that Jeff Murray was looking into something to help out with that cost. Does anybody else remember that from a previous meeting?
I do.
Yes, Jeff said he would take a look at that, which I'm all for.
So
And just
so-
as a side note, Paul, I think Jeff said that $60,000 was probably in the right range for them to update the control software on this. I think what was discussed was if the hydraulics for the unit were sound, that it's just an electronics and a computer upgrade that needs to happen. And I thought he said $60,000 was in the range. And that's what they put in their document, I believe.
okay, so
But-
so what's in the document is pretty that's accurate if we go down the road where Jeff's looking into that. So it's not a higher cost. Okay.
No, they were talking about a
Um,
lot of money
but-
if they had to put in the whole unit, the whole
Yeah.
elevator unit. And it was a question if the mechanical side, the hydraulics were good, then they just needed to update the software. But but I will go,
From what
Paula,
I
you're probably
see-
right. You're probably right from the reading of that information. When I read that information from the school board, I thought the elevator company said they couldn't find parts for it. And I'm not sure if it's the electronics or the mechanical.
Well,
No,
in
as
the letter,
far
it
as-
says it's the hydraulics.
Hmm.
The letter says it's the hydraulics that need to replace.
I don't think it was the hydraulics. I think Jeff is right, because I think what got lost in the translation when they were trying to put this letter together was that the problem is that the controls for that elevator are really old and they can't get parts for them. And the concern is if they have any control issues or any breakage in the control elements for the hydraulics, they're in deep trouble because they can no longer, that the parts for them are no longer supported. So right now, the elevator works perfectly fine. But if they have any control issues with the elevator, the solution is basically rip out the control system and replace it en masse. And that's where it gets, pretty expensive pretty quick.
I mean, Dan is right that the letter does say hydraulic upgrade, but I don't think that number is for a hydraulic upgrade. That's why I went in the opposite direction, Eric, because I was sitting there. The way I understood it was mechanical issues. If it mechanically it will work, it needs a computer upgrade. And the computer upgrade, if I remember what Jeff Murray was saying last week, was $60,000 to $75,000. And that's the number they're putting in their letter, the school board.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to be getting an upgrade estimate from the elevator company. So they have a more firm cost estimate, but they just, as far as I know, they do not yet have that. But they've been getting a verbal estimate so far as to what their costs would be to do that.
I mean, let's all be clear. That number is low on AES, Paula. It is low. Anne's right. She's not wrong. But, if we sit there and put in $300,000 in that capital fund, we're just going to get so much pushback. I think what we do is we put $100,000 in, and we keep trying to put $100,000 in it every year, and hope that all of these potential issues don't snowball on us. And what we'd have to do is go into our reserve and take money out of our reserve to sit there and do these things. And to do that, Eric, what we have to do, we'd have to go to public meeting, and we'd have to, it'd be, it's got to get done, but it's a question of what we as a board want to present to the Board of Finance. We want to present $200,000 and increase it by the total expenditures by $600,000. Do we want to sit there and increase it to $200,000 and add an additional $100,000 out of our reserve? Those are the questions we want to ask ourselves. But I think we're probably pushing the limits of the total expenditures that we want to push out there. That's just me.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we have a little grace period for this year, and it's probably over after this year with further reductions from the high school. And if you really look at it, because right now what they're doing is our percentage of the high school enrollment is at around 13.9% of the total student body there, which is why our costs for RAM have dropped considerably. But if you look at our numbers for K through 12, our K through 12 compared to the other towns, we're at 16.9% currently. So that means our K through 6 has got to be closer to 18 to 19%, which means we're going to see a huge cost increase coming through for RAM in the next 5 to 6 years. So I think we have to be aware.
Have we ever judged that by eliminating K? And the reason I ask that is, we ever asked the school board how many of the students in the kindergarten program are actually not from Andover?
Do you mean the pre-K?
The pre-K, yeah. In the kindergarten.
It's a
I mean,
little
I'm
further.
asking from a
Very
general.
few.
Doesn't matter. We don't have very big numbers, so numbers matter. And I guess I would ask that, Eric, because I'm understanding and I'm with you that our numbers will increase again. But are we what are the true numbers? Like as they progress upwards, are we counting pre-K? Are we counting kids that aren't even part of the
No, those numbers I quoted you for school population K through 12,
okay.
because that's what they have that's equivalent between the three towns.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is,
We're gonna have an increase.
go down the road in 5 years, our RAM budget is gonna be $1 million higher than it is now. So we're gonna have to face that. But then again, it's gone down almost 900,000 in 3 years. You know, so we've made out really well on that, but it's a temporary blip.
Well, the issue with the RAM budget is the RAM budget decreasing in total dollars? And the answer is no. It's just
No.
our portion of the budget is decreasing.
Correct.
And so when our portion of the budget catches up for the last couple of years where we haven't been concerned about increases or decreases because we're decreasing because of population loss, when we get to the other side, we're not going to be happy on the opposite side because we're going to be going back to the town residents saying, you gotta, we're going to come back next year or 2 years or 3 years from now and have a $500,000 budget increase strictly related to RAM increases.
Correct.
Okay. All right, Paul, you were asking the question on the AES budget, and the issue is, yeah, Paul, it's probably low. But what are we gonna do? Are we gonna sit there and ask for more now? And if we do, I mean, we can put it to the public and ask them, but it's a big number.
Yeah, I think we're all in. We would love to bump every number up on all over the budget, but we always have to consider, like you're saying, what we've got to look to see where we can fund some of the stuff. So I'm just trying to think creatively here. My next question, and sorry if this was already answered. So they're in their letter, number 4, the upper lot reclaimed and paved. Is that part of what they sent us in that check that we were holding on to?
Yes, that wasn't gonna cover the whole amount,
Okay.
but it was close enough that we could have covered the rest from the Public Works Road Improvement Fund and just kind of ate it at the town level. Which, I mean, in truth, it's our asset anyway as a town, so that's not an unreasonable thing. The problem is that they don't have as much money as they thought they had. So they're not going to be writing the town a check for the whole amount. They're probably go, and I don't know what the final answer is, and we don't have any financial data from the school. So, but I'm spitballing based on what the auditor told me, that I asked him order of magnitude, is it $20,000? Is it $50,000? And he said it's somewhere between the two, but closer to 20,000. So my working assumption is that the school will have a budget surplus of about 95,000 that could be put into the capital fund and then fund part of the upper parking lot improvement. Or if it turns out that the restroom and the plumbing work is a greater priority on that. I mean, I think as far as I understand, the school board still thinks the parking lot is their greatest priority, not the plumbing.
Well,
Okay. And then
But we don't have to identify which project. They're gonna identify that, right? We're just talking numbers at this point, but they're giving us project names so that we can have an idea of what they're talking about, right?
Correct.
Well, wouldn't this process be that the school board would send the representative to CIP and sit there and say, these are our priorities? And then it goes into, have they been funded? Or how are they going to be funded?
Well, I don't believe the school board necessarily thinks that way.
Well, they obviously don't, because I would sit there and look at lights not as a maintenance item, but as a capital item, and they did the lights. So they obviously don't think that way, but that's how I think. Is in my head, the school board needs to give their list, their 10-year plan, and maybe it's not exactly a 10-year plan because, the plumbing issue popped up and that takes precedence over a parking lot. And that's just the way it is. So, again, we're just sitting there saying, what do we have money and where are we going to put it? So we're basically, as a board on line one, just saying, we're going to put $100,000 into a piggy bank and it's going to be spent as needed, as items are addressed. But again, that AES capital fund is still a board of selectmen, board of finance purview as to how it gets spent, which then means it goes to capital improvement to sit there and outline how we spend for capital improvement issues. So,
And I agree with your perspective.
Well, this is also, this is a new venture, right? This is the first time that they've sat down and given us a document like this, so we're gonna have to work on this. But maybe that's a conversation that can be had on the side. I don't know. I'm having a difficult time trying to figure out what that number needs to be and where we're pulling things from, because this is new, right? So I don't know if anybody else is having the same thought process, but I don't know. Scott, what do you think?
I'm good with it.
You're good with what?
The $100,000 for the capital fund. But I feel the same way Jeff and Eric do about capital expenses. It's supposed to be anything over $3,000.
Well, no, more than 3,000.
yeah.
I think
What's
it's
that
currently
number?
set at, I think it's currently set at 15,000.
15,
That's
whatever,
technically
15,000.
the Board of Finance's decision where they set the thresholds for capitalization.
Yeah. So Paula, from my end, it's that, because of the issue with the parking lot, we're trying to do a better job of, and we created that fund because they were going to put their money in it. They didn't put their money in it, right? The Board of Education did not have the money, didn't put it in. We didn't cash a check. I didn't want the check. Told Eric we're not cashing the check until it's decided that that was going to get done. So, but we created a fund because we do have to realize as a board that we're going to have to fund, that's the town's largest asset. It has to be maintained. So we have to put some money away. Is it enough? The answer is no. But I would sit there and ask, where in any municipal budget like ours are we going to, we don't have, it's all taxation. It's all, if you went to Eric's tab on the mill rate, it all comes from the residents. So is that number enough? No, but Paula, that also goes into us laying it out to the residents at these meetings, and probably doing a better job this year going, to do all the roads, it's $15 million. To do all the culverts, it's $9 million. To do the potential items the school has laid out in front of us, it's probably going to take, $2.5 million over the next 10 years. Is this enough? The answer is no. Are we going to try to find money from grants? Yes. Are we going to try to do different things? Yes. Is it going to come down to that the town is going to have to fund a significant portion of all this? The answer is yes. It's either that or we just let things go into total disrepair and we walk away and don't think about it. I mean, we can let a bunch of our culverts fail and then people have to find other ways to drive, but then, that causes a tremendous amount of heartache. And think of the bus problems it would create on Lake Road if we let that culvert fail.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
all of these are necessary. Are they funded to where they should be? No. But
You're trying to prioritize.
yeah, are we willing to go to the community with a $600,000 increase this fiscal year? And okay, it's not 600,000, it's it's $528,000 through taxation. And so if we approved all of these right now, and we said yes to every budget and didn't have one more budget meeting, and we allowed Eric's spreadsheet to go to the Board of Finance, we'd be saying, okay, we're good with $528,000 increase. Give or take, there might be some, if the revenue estimate, it comes out correctly, it's not that total number, but that's still what I would say if I was a resident, that's the number I'd be battling at.
Yeah.
$528,000. And so
Yeah, I mean,
if you
this
added
is,
all this up, if Eric just took these 10 items, Eric, add these 10 items up, just go to the bottom of,
yeah, I'll sum it up for you.
no, I want the delta increase.
All right, I'll give you that in a sec.
Yeah, you got it. No problem.
It's always interesting to watch how somebody
People do
uses a
things different.
spreadsheet. Yeah,
It's absolutely not the way I'd be doing it.
that's okay. He's gonna get it.
There's your number.
Okay, so those 10 items represent everything but
Mhm.
$30,000. So
Yeah, I mean, there are other increases, but overall, this is the majority of, of what we're talking about.
Eric, can you go to the 7A, the line 7A treasurer's salary, and tell me why the increase says 3,000%? Because
Yeah.
you just wrote it in. It's not that number. You just copied that.
Oh, it copy and pasted from the other formula, so
Yeah. Got it.
uh
Go up to 100%.
it's
The
clearly
one
not.
above it. Go to J. Copy. Yeah, copy that one down. Copy. Paste. Okay. There you go. 48%. That's the number. Okay. Okay, so let's get rid of our entire budget. This is basically all, and we don't have to do this today, but this is the entire increase, these 10 items. So anybody got a fight with anything? I mean, the only one I would sit there and say is it really, really important to the community, the open space money. That would be the one that I would sit there and go at. No, even the treasurer's wages and the clerk's wages, those, she's probably not wrong that she's putting more time in that she needs. I mean, can we talk about those in the other side of our meeting? Yes, but I wouldn't even focus on those. It's not the biggest ones. I would focus on everything over $50,000 and let's talk about if we're going to do it or not do it. So go to the top. So AES Capital Fund, $100,000. Do we want to vote on it and say
Yes.
Okay. The $100,000 proposal for the AAS Capital Fund. I make a motion that we approve $100,000 for the AAS Capital Fund.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion on that one? I know we've discussed it, but it's low, but it's $100,000 and it's a start for what we need to do.
We have to start on it. Right.
Okay. Anybody else? Ann, you got anything on it? Paula, anything on it?
I said my part already.
All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Um, And I'll just do these all just to just get them on the
Mhm.
the community center overall budget. I make a motion that we increase that new line item by 82,000 $83,000.
A second, Jeff.
Okay. So, and just so we're clear, Eric, that is related to the new individual that we're talking about bringing in potentially to manage that facility and work through senior activities and the recreation department, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just so I want to be clear, so I know what I'm going to vote on.
Right, so, that, I'm just going up to that one. So that community center budget includes $60,000 for the wage of the director, some money for building maintenance, some money for HVAC maintenance, some money for software maintenance. The additional cost for alarm monitoring from one extra building does not cover the cost of putting in the alarm system, because we know we're gonna have to cover that out of the money from the multi-use building fund. That is, assumes that that person is gonna be on call and therefore is going to need a cellular phone. That covers the cost of a VoIP phone system for the building, internet connection to the building, and electricity, and maintenance costs for a defibrillator. And then a little bit of money for the person's initial computer, because that person's gonna need a computer. So that's what that covers.
What about other utilities? Is that covered under the town hall side?
Well, so that's the only real utility is electrical, internet, phone. The phone runs off the internet, so it's just the VoIP costs.
How about propane?
What about
Um,
heat and AC?
It is a fully electric building,
Fully
so
electric.
that is the only utility really is electricity for that building.
Okay. And so we're guessing on our total number on that. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, I took a fairly conservative look at what a lighting and plug load for that building is under reasonable occupancy, and then figured out what the annual heating and cooling costs are. So that is a rough guess. I could be off a couple $1,000 either way. But that's a starting point.
And then as far as the salary, we talked about this in a in a earlier meeting, but I don't know if we landed on something. Is this person's salary based on part-time or full-time?
That is based on a full-time position,
Okay.
but a single full-time position with no help.
Okay.
volunteer help, but no paid help.
Volunteer help, correct.
Okay. All right. And so that was in the $60,000 range, the salary.
Correct. I mean, there's a pretty good bracket. That's kind of the low to middle portion of what a community center or senior center director gets paid relative to other municipalities.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that line item? No. So all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
We're not, Jeff Murray has joined us. All right, Jeff. Line item 3, culverts and bridges. So I make a motion that we fund the bridge and culvert fund to $175,000 for next fiscal year.
I'll second.
Okay. So this is another one of these that we're really low anyway. How much is in that fund right now, Eric?
I think around 350,000.
Okay, and the Lake Road culvert expected cost to the town of Andover?
Up to 950,000, but hoping to keep it less than that. That's what the state is saying our costs will be, per their formula based on all the applications they've got in the last couple of years. Our engineering firm thinks we can stay under that, but I don't think we're gonna get much under, say, 700 or 750,000. So in my head, I'm saying, we're gonna spend 750,000 on that, and that's what I'm trying to come up with the money right now for.
Okay. As a side part of this, Eric, for the town meeting, please have a list of all of the culverts that you know we need to do work on and the expected costs of each one of those culverts so that the community can understand, okay, this is just the first culvert in a list of culverts that we need to attack over the next 10 years. Or
Right.
20. All right. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions related to the culvert funding? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And so Anne, I can't see you now. So did you vote yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Health and dental insurance. I make a motion that we increase total health and dental insurance funding to. I know I'll do your exact number, Eric, even though I dislike round. So $236,390.
I'll second it.
Okay. Eric, should we be voting, and this is just a side note, should we be voting on this one right now, or are you going to have better information on that line item?
I think I'm gonna have better, I want to have better information before we get to the Board of Finance.
Okay.
So after tonight's meeting, I'm trying to turn this whole thing over to Cheryl to review everything I've done before that. And I think which should be a good time because we've done most of the handoff with the auditor at this point. So we're in pretty good shape for the audit. So yeah.
Okay, so this is one of those that I'm expecting that you're going to come back to us and say this number's changed, whether to the positive or to the negative. I mean,
I'm almost positive it will change. The increase will go down.
go down. Okay. So I'm going to revise my motion to sit there and say that we're going to fund the 2024-2025 budget for health and dental insurance to a maximum of $236,390.
I'll second that also.
Okay. Any discussions on this one? This is one of those that we don't really have a lot of say on it. It does, it still does bother me that we're in this consortium. It's self-insured. We were supposed to start at year 3, which this is basically year 3 or 4. We were supposed to start seeing money back related to this. And I know they didn't do very big increases last year, but it's a big increase.
Well, so in the last 2 years previous to this, there was a decrease and then 0 increase last year. So, it's a 16% increase this year, but the 2 previous years have either been a decrease or flat.
Okay. All right. And just so we're aware, Eric, in the initial stages of this consortium, they kept us at a pretty high level and they kept us there for 3 years. So that minimum at 3 years so they could build up a fund. And so, okay. All those in favor on that one? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Right, so all 4 of us. Item 5, I make a motion that we budget $50,000 for the open space fund for the 2024-2025 budget.
That also,
Okay. Any discussion on this item? As I've said before, this is the one item that I probably will vote no on, not because I don't believe we need it, but I don't believe it's timely with everything else we're doing. And then again, I could understand if we vote yes for it, because when will it ever be timely to sit there and fund something like that?
will never be timely.
It will never be timely to fund it. So I don't disagree with it. Any other discussion on that item? Okay. All those in favor on open space funding for the $50,000?
I,
Aye. Okay, so any opposed? No, so Ann voted yes, okay. 5-0, so yes. I make a motion that we add $50,000 to well, before I make this motion, Eric, what do we really want to call this moving forward?
I actually think calling it the multi-use building fund is generic enough.
yeah, pretty generic.
That it makes sense personally.
So I'll make a motion that we fund the multi-use building account for $50,000 for fiscal year 2024, 2025.
I'll second.
All right. And so Eric, just so we're all aware, that's $50,000 for global use for any of the properties within the town that need funding during the fiscal year, correct? It would be used on any building.
Yes, that could be used on any building, and that's what that was originally set up was to be basically essentially a new construction fund. But I think you could consider it either.
So if we had an emergency in a building and we needed to address that emergency in that fiscal year, we could use that money.
You could.
Okay. And if we wanted to use that money to assist with the construction of the facility to house the senior transportation trucks, we could use it to assist in that area as well.
Yeah, actually, that also already went to a public meeting and was approved by the public to do that.
Yeah, but what
So-
I'm saying is, what if you had an some extra money? We could potentially use that. I'm just globally
Correct.
saying, hey, listen, this is
Yes,
available funding for what could be out there for any multi-use building that we have in this town.
correct.
Okay. All right. Further discussion on that line item?
I don't think it's enough.
God, nothing's enough. I mean, but nothing is enough. But there's limitations to what we
We
can.
have a lot of buildings.
Well, if you go through the buildings and you go through each one of them, yeah, it is. But that's also why we have CIP and what we do individually for a given
Right.
building. But
Yeah.
I look at that number differently. I look at it as something comes up and we don't want to have to keep going back to a town meeting and asking for money after the budget cycle is over. We have to have somewhere where we can have a pool of money to do things
Right.
without having to go back. Is it enough? The answer is no. I'm 100% with you, but how much money do you want to ask for? You can change it. Go ahead, make another motion.
No, we're
Don't have-
good.
We don't have to vote
Good.
on that number.
Maybe next year we'll be able to increase it more.
Okay. Any other further discussion on the item? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I personally want to
Jeff's and I too.
5-0. I want to skip the next three. Even the next four. We should discuss at our next meeting. Let's plan on discussing all all labor and wage issues at our next meeting. So Eric, if you can have all of the wage and benefit issues available for us for next meeting, we can sit there and do those and get those all out of the way. I don't have a problem with any of these per se, but I don't necessarily know this is the right time for us to do those. Unless someone has a problem with that and you want to discuss them right now.
It'll be our next regular scheduled meeting.
Well, our next budget meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so for the record, you all have the updated sheet. If you went to the third and fourth and fifth tabs, you would see the costs associated with employee benefits, costs associated with healthcare and MRF, and the employee cost. So you have a full spreadsheet of that by individual, by category to look at.
Okay. Thank you. It is there.
Yep.
On this tab. Okay, so let's go down to item 10, the fire engine fund. So I make a motion to fund the fire engine. Let me go backwards. Let me rephrase that. I make a motion that we fund the fire engine fund for $137,000 for the budget cycle of 2024-2025.
I'll second.
Okay. So the further discussion on that item is that money is the amount of money due on the tanker that is being ordered, Eric, correct? Plus some extra money because you believe there'll be additional interest related to that vehicle.
Well, because the fire engine / tanker fund is the Board of Fire Commissioners kind of capital fund. So while this covers the cost, the major expense right now is the new squad vehicle or rescue pumper combination. But the fire department still has quite a lot of other capital needs. And I don't have a capital plan updated for this year, but I can certainly, because I have not yet gotten one from the Board of Fire Commissioners. But I expect to get one, and I could probably dig up last year's that they presented to CIP. So you can kind of understand what they're looking at and what they're, because there are some things where they are required to replace at certain intervals. And then there are some things which they know are coming down the pike at some point, like the system to refill all their self-contained breathing apparatus tanks. That system is pretty old, and that's one that they've been pushing off, but they know they're going to have to replace that system. You know, and then they've got a bunch of smaller vehicles that are getting pretty long in the tooth.
Okay. So that's so we're putting a small amount of money, and there's some money in the fund. I believe you told us there was somewhere around $225,000 in that fund already. The individual annual payments on the vehicle that is being built right now is $125,000. So we'll have some money in that fund. It will offset the cost of that vehicle and add a little bit of money to it, but not anything that we need to. So again, that number is low.
Yes. I mean, the only good thing in that is that the other big ticket item, which is on order now, is the ambulance, but that's paid for out of the ambulance billing fund. So that doesn't hit.
Have they told you how much that's going to cost?
I think it's around $350,000.
And have they told you how much is in the fund?
Enough to pay for the ambulance.
Pay
So
for
the
the
answer is no.
The answer is no. That's got to change as well. Okay, so any further discussion on the motion that's on the floor?
Would it be helpful to get that capital report before we move forward with this?
Well, again, we're a year ahead of this, so they really have $250,000 in in our capital fund to fund. And Paula, the answer is none of those items that they're gonna ask for are small dollar items. So even their smaller dollar items are $50,000 to $75,000 before they get to vehicles. So if they're going to this filling station, I'm sure it's gonna be a $75,000 or $100,000 cost. So, while I would sit there and say, Paul, maybe we want to put $200,000 in it, I'm not gonna. It's as I would say 125,000, but I know what Eric is trying to do, so I'm willing to sit there and pick up the extra 12,000.
Right.
Mhm.
And I think it would be worthwhile, and we'll bring this up at the next meeting. The fire chief has asked that the Board of Selectmen pick a Saturday or a Sunday, preferably a Sunday, and have a meeting with all the officers of the fire department and kind of, so they can kind of walk you through what all these things are, and kind of start a dialogue. Because although I know Ron pretty well and he and I talk pretty regularly, I don't think the members of the fire department necessarily know the board all that well. So I think that would be a reasonable thing to do at some point.
Okay, we can do that. But we have any further discussion on this item? Okay, let's vote on this item. So all those in favor of the fire engine fund amount of 137? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
So that's 5-0 on that. So basically what we just did is we have a $538,000 increase, and we voted on the majority of the significant items. So we didn't vote on 493, but we probably voted on, 475 of that total. So I still think we're going to have problems, but at least we have the ability to support what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. And the majority of the money that we're looking to increase is going into funds to fund capital improvements. Because Eric, if you slide back up on this, there's $100,000 that's there for, or $82,000 for the community center. So if we added the totals, you got 82, 70, 150, and then 21. So 170,000 are for operational, 185,000 are for operational funds. Maybe 200,000 of this total are operational funds, and 82,000 of that's related to community centers. So I don't really feel bad about it. 70 for benefits. I don't think we're pushing the envelope from just a pure operational standpoint. It's 60% of it is still capital, and we're just trying to be prudent and fund it as we go, as opposed to come back to the community at any one given point in time and say, hey, listen, we need $500,000 to do this. So spreading it out, I think it's a wise thing to do, and I have no problem being able to stand up there and tell the community that. So as far as this meeting goes, I think we've kind of done enough. It's a lot of money. What I would ask for our next meeting is to go over the individual slide for employee costs and all of the issues related to healthcare and employee benefits, just to get a feel for what those are. And we do that, we can sit there and get through the majority of what we have to deal with. And then what I would recommend for the following meeting, Eric, when do you want to get this to the Board of Finance?
So basically we have to deliver to the Board of Finance by March 1st.
Okay.
So the next meeting after the budget meeting will be the 19th. So you theoretically have the 19th and the 26th to consider, or the week of the 19th. I thought maybe we moved that one day.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, we're meeting on
20th.
21st because of the holidays.
Right,
Okay.
Yeah.
right.
Did we not schedule, was what we did with the meeting next week is we canceled the budget meeting totally? Is that
Yes.
accurate, or we're on the 14th? So, okay, we're not on the 14th. So it was the following week, we're on the 21st.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay.
So you still have the 21st and the 26th to make any final decisions you want before turning it over to Board of Finance.
On the town calendar, you've got our budget meeting on the 20th, but I thought it was supposed to be the 21st. That calendar should be changed then.
I mean, I gave Kate what I wrote down at that meeting. It's possible I got it wrong. We got plenty of other things wrong, so.
Yeah,
Um,
I've got it. I typed it into my calendar on the 21st. I think the
I'm
20th
sorry,
yeah, the
Paul.
20th was an issue with planning and zoning, I
Planning and
believe.
zoning, yeah,
Right.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Planning and zoning said they couldn't do it, so we had to push the 21st. All right, and then the
Okay.
26th is the other meeting, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so so on the 21st, let's go over wages and benefits. And then on the 26th, let's then run through the entire budget and sit there and see if anybody has any problems with any of the line items through the entire budget. And what we'll do is we'll vote on segments of the budget and just get it all passed. I mean, because what we've done here is we've just did the majority of the overall increase. The rest of the budget is either flat or shifting between segments and in different areas of the budget. Unless anybody has any issues with that, that's what I'd like to do, unless somebody has another recommendation and we can evaluate. Anybody?
Good idea.
Okay. All right.
I came late tonight, Jeff. Did you guys discuss Public Works before I got on?
No, we didn't go over any of the additional items related to Public Works, Jeff.
Okay, because I'd like to revisit that. I'd like to revisit those items if possible. Next meeting.
Let's do it next meeting before we get into the wages.
Okay.
Because I think we just received those today, and I know Paula had been sending out some emails and texts related to receiving it earlier so we could evaluate it. So that's fine. So we'll do
Yeah,
that.
I want to digest what Jay sent out and then so we can talk about it next meeting.
All right, no
Right.
problem.
Yeah, I mean, I just got it this afternoon too, so I haven't really even fully reviewed that myself, so.
Okay,
I'm-
are there any
So
other issues?
do you want Jay back at the next meeting, at the beginning of the meeting to discuss that? That
Sure.
would be the meeting on the 21st,
It always helps.
okay?
Yes.
All right, do we have any other reason or anything else that we want to sit there and deal with? And I understand, Joanne, I'll get to you. I know I see your hand up. I got it. Is there anything else that we want to discuss?
Are
further?
there any other permanent funds? Because I only listed the permanent funds or the capital funds that were increasing. Are there any other of those capital funds that you want to discuss or have concerns with?
Why don't you put on your agenda for the next meeting as well to give us all of the fundings for all of the funds? And then we can use that as a different segment. So let's go through Public Works first, then go through the capital fund increase, the capital funds in total, like what we're doing with them all. And then we'll go through the employee costs at our next meeting. And then the
Okay.
following budget meeting, we'll just go through the entire budget, your entire spreadsheet, and we'll go through section by section and talk about the items. Not the items, but the overall budgets for the different departments.
Okay.
The items we're talking about the next meeting, do we need to invite anybody else that we haven't thought of tonight? Or we don't need to invite the treasurer to talk about that item? Let's just,
I think it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to hear from the treasurer at least one of these meetings.
So then let's ask
Yeah.
her to attend the next budget meeting on the 21st so that she can sit there and talk to us about the increases for her department.
Okay.
and if she has anything she wants to share that night, if you can just ask her to make sure we get it in time, just so we can review it, and then if we need to put anything out there for the public, so.
Right.
and
Okay.
then I want to ask a question. And Eric, this is a technical question. When we talk about these employee numbers, can we go into executive session during this meeting?
So I don't know the answer. I know for at least one or two you can, because if you're discussing something related to a union employee, you have the right to go into an executive session, because that gets at what a town bargaining position would be. But for a regular employee, I don't know if you have that right to discuss an executive session or whether that has to be done in the open.
All right. Can you ask Dennis that question just quickly? Because if we can, I mean, I might be old school, but I don't like talking about this. I know it's all public information. I know anybody can get it, but I would rather not have discussions in public because a lot of the increase information is based upon performance and what we believe related to an individual. So if we can, I'd rather do it not on Zoom
Okay.
and not
Well,
recorded. I mean,
you
I
mean-
want to do it on Zoom. I just don't want to record it and
Mhm.
want it to be in executive session if at all possible.
I will get a ruling on that for you.
All right. Anybody else have anything else? All right. Does anybody mind if I move to public speak? Okay, Eric, can you drop this off of the screen so I can see everybody that's
Oh,
on?
sorry about that. Yep.
No problem. Okay. And Jay,
Actually,
are you
yep.
on from DPW? Jay is just sleeping on us. All right. Okay, so Joanne Ebert, you had your hand up.
I appreciate it, Jeff. I just had a couple quick points that I thought of as were all speaking. Eric I was surprised to see the assistant treasurer's salary request. Again, I appreciate that you want to go in executive session, and I think that's admirable, and I think it should be. I think too much is sometimes said in these sessions. But anyways, that was a union position that was just negotiated, like recently. I know I sat on that panel. And so it just surprises me if there were any changes to be made in all the open meetings that they weren't brought up then. I mean, I think you guys, as the Board of Selectmen, in good faith, put your beliefs in the panel that was sitting on that, Eric, myself, and Adrian at the time, and we sat across from those people. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention because I know you weren't there. So I understand that the treasurer, kind of like the town clerk last year, that's open, for these kind of meetings, but I thought the other union things were already settled. So that's one. I was a little also surprised, having sat on, the whole beginning of the AES capital improvement fund for Andover Elementary, which I agree with all of you that it's a good idea. I know that you're not privy, unless you've watched the meetings, that we've kind of gone back and forth with you know, AES wanted kind of an agreement with the Board of Finance, you know, as to how that's run. And so there's been back and forth. I think they're realizing now, the school is realizing that it wasn't just the money that was left over getting funneled back into the fund for use, that possibly it was going to get funded, like you all have put the 100,000, you know, as the marker right now, which I think is a little higher for the first time, you know, sitting in all the meetings with the go back and forth, understanding there's a lot of projects, understanding there should be lists and all of that, but you know, kind of like the baby step thing that we had talked about. I think, yeah, so that's your decision there too. And that'll be interesting to see how, you know, that's always a point of contention with the town, the regular budget. So now that we're establishing a capital fund for them to, that will just be interesting. But I hope it comes to fruition, and my idea was a little less than that, but you guys are the rulers there with that, so no problem. And then just when you put together, I know you have that new position, and I'm so excited for the community center this year. Just working in the HR world and kind of, and that kind of thing. I just hope, and I know you will, that because that will get funded at a decent amount with benefits and all of that, that it just has a really, really well-written job description. Because I found that it seems like when things aren't on job descriptions and you want to add a few things, even if people have time, then there's stipends asked for and things like that. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks. Maria.
You. Jay, we'll ask you for public speak, but we have a question for you. And if you are listening, do you have time to meet with us at the beginning of the next budget meeting, which is the 21st, to discuss the open items related to Public Works? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I'll put you in my calendar. So
Okay.
I just did, I was just here to see if you wanted to talk about anything tonight, but I understand you guys got a lot on your plate.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to share with us, Jay?
Not at this time. I'm just still working on some of the other requests that you had, so it's just I'm still compiling information.
All right, perfect. All right, and Jed Larson, you're a last individual for public speak.
I enjoyed listening to the conversations tonight. I understand the challenges ahead with the budget. I think your comment about there'll never be a better time, it's only going to get harder. So, you know, I'm hoping that the open space funding will stay in the budget, and it won't need an increase going forward. It would be maintained at that level. But I have a much better appreciation for how tough the budget is. So I'm glad I stuck around.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. Anybody else got anything they want to discuss? All right. We're good. So, Ann, why don't you make the motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All right.
Awesome.
Paula seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, Eric. Jay, thank you. See you later, Jed.